what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Thursday. I, for half of the day, thought it was Friday. That's not true. Not totally half, but for a good portion of the day, I thought it was Friday, and I was out and about. So imagine. But alas, it is Thursday, January 11th, the day of the new moon in Capricorn, of which I posted about yesterday in a new moon message and also a reading time-stamped. Go check it out if you care to. Very much so encouraged to do so. Yeah. Today's a lovely day where I am. Sun is shining brilliantly, and it was a pretty good day to be out and about. Not too cold, but just crisp enough to be reminded that it is in fact winter. And I'm here now at the table a little later than usual. I'm hearing a bit of a commotion downstairs from my neighbors. Hope it's not a disturbance to the reading or to this recording. But in any event, we shall press on. Okay. So let's see. Is there anything else I need to say? I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, yeah, but no. So I'll just press on it. Okay. 5 of Pentacles. Okay. This is despair. Poverty, lack, poor in spirit, if not poor in wealth, or maybe even perhaps poor in wealth. As the saying goes, your health is your wealth. This is something or someone that may be devoid of both. Very low vibrational way to start, quite honestly. Someone that may feel downtrodden or outcasted from safety, particularly the sanctity of their own spirit or spiritual sanctity, and it manifests itself in a material form. So to be poor in spirit is to be poor in truth or poor in the natural. You know, even if you really translate that, even someone that may not be poor in the pockets per se, if you're poor in spirit, it's still just as much transferable or translatable, because if your spirit is low vibe, any material measurement is really no matter, quite honestly, because it could be here today, gone tomorrow. So I don't know where we're starting with this one, but I will say this, because the one thing that kind of got my goat today when I was out and about, and particularly where I am, I live in the city, right? And lately, one thing, I know that there must be some connection here if I felt, because I for a second was going to speak on it, but I was like, nah. But then I saw this and I'm like, yeah, because this is giving vibes like, you know, hood vibes. That's what this is. You know, people that are not in the most supreme living standards in some way, shape, or form. Now, of course, it's, like I said, it can be much more internal than it has to be external, but one and the same to some degree. And I've been really annoyed lately by the ads for cannabis products, how they're being marketed now, particularly on YouTube, like the mood products. Don't know if you've seen those ads, where it's usually like some white couple that really has been. I haven't seen any other nationalities, but I've been seeing white couples, you know, promoting the use of cannabis products in a very jovial and upbeat and like, yeah, everybody's doing it type of way, I guess, to take the stigma and taboo off of it, right? And that's all fine and good because as I make it well known, I am no stranger to the ganja, okay? Like I've definitely had my affinity with green, with the greenery. But it bothers me when I see the ads, and for the most obvious reasons, because all I can think about is how many people, how many communities have been torn apart, families ripped apart on account of the laws built around cannabis distribution and even consumption, usage, and how people are still to this day, if not in jail over charges connected to weed, let's just call it what it is, or distribution or possession, I should say. That's where it started. Like that was like the gateway to the capture, the collusion of the system, so to speak, where it may have started as something minor and then kind of spun out of control to the point where, you get one charge, then you come out, you can't really get a good job, and so you back on, it's just like the cycle. That's what I should say, not the collusion, but the cycle, that first seed. So it just really kind of pisses me off, I gotta say. It's like I don't have no issue with anybody consuming or buying, growing. Hell, honestly, I would love to be a grower, of something pure though, but that's another story for another day, because I don't even trust what they're giving out in these dispensaries right now. I just don't personally. And the fact that they're popping up in places everywhere and smoke shops everywhere, which is the point of what I'm saying right now, is that when I was walking with my son in our neighborhood, I noticed that the local cleaners, which had been a business there for at least as long as I've been living here, which has been some years now, but probably much longer than that. I knew it was closing, but then when we walked by today, we noticed that not only has it closed, but a new shop has popped up, seems like almost overnight. I'm like, oh shoot, they moved out already? And already what's this setting up to be but a smoke shop? Not a dispensary, but there is a dispensary a few blocks up from me that newly opened earlier this year. But another smoke shop. And I was just like, this just don't even make no sense. There's a smoke shop a few blocks up, then another one a few blocks up from that. It's like, you gotta take a bus to a decent grocery store, but smoke shops, liquor stores, dime a dozen, and it's just, like I said, and then I've been seeing the ads, and every time I see it, it still affects me in the same way. Like I still have a little bit of resentment toward it for some reason, when I consider, if you're not going to go back and release people that are still hanging on for drug charges connected to marijuana, I don't want to see no jovial ads about it now that everybody's doing it type of vibe. Now, it's just, I don't know. I don't even know if it was worth me saying all that, but I wonder if you feel the same way, or maybe I just needed to release it and get it off my chest. And I do feel like that's just one inflection of some of the imbalances in justice that have occurred. Part of me that have, I guess, opportunity for repair, or adjustment. So maybe I'm speaking on something that could get to be, but I feel like even if they were to say that, the effed up part really is that even if they were to be able to say, all right, we'll let everybody out that had a marijuana charge, no matter what it was, or no matter, within whatever the limitations are supposed to be for possession these days, or we'll expunge that part of your record or something like that. Even if they said that, because as I've said, that was almost like the gateway corruption for a lot of people, and then started the spiral of the cycle, it wouldn't even hardly matter for many people, because the initiation of that charge is what started the rabbit hole. So now they might be so deep into, you know, the depths of the system at this point, or so affected by it even years down the line, that it may not, would it even really, would it create balance? What would it? It's like some things are, maybe it's just my human eyes that feels like, just as much as I pray for balance and peace and harmony of the things that I see are just unfair and, this and that, some things just feel like they're beyond repair, and I pray for that energy to be transmuted truly. But in some ways, it's just like you can't give people back their time, and now here we are, now that the government can make money off of it in a way that makes sense for it. Now it's marketable, it's recreational, it's medicinal, even all these things that it's always been, but now in a different form. It's just, and then don't even get me started on God even knows what's in what they're throwing up in all of our neighborhoods, you know what I mean, in terms of the dispensaries. And then on top of that, putting the small businessman, i.e. the local the local hustler out of business, or definitely putting them in grave competition. It's just like, once again, it's kind of a smack in the face, because it's like, now you competing with local businesses, literally, and most of them, as I said, are products of the system that really kind of gave them very limited choices, but to X, Y, and Z, if you know what I mean. So I don't know. If I gotta say, yeah, some things need to be put to rest, but I gotta say, of all the experiences of my day, that was the most disheartening to some degree, But maybe this is also spirit saying, just rest. You'll see the turnaround, the reward of, I don't know, like the materialization of this vision that I'm saying, like where there is harmony and balance restored, is what I'm sensing here, where people that have been greatly disenfranchised will, like the Bible definitely does say that there's a scripture that says something about your years being restored. I'm gonna have to find exactly what it says, but that more or less that you won't feel like you've lost anything, and I just truly hope that is so for those that have been able to hang in there, literally, with the Four of Swords, to see the day of retribution, but it's like, how many people have been able to hang in there? It's been a dog life for many. The fact that, I often consider the fact that I myself, being an 80s baby, have made it and living and being a 100% product of the inner city. You can hear the siren right now. Have survived the crack epidemic and the AIDS epidemic and, black on black crime, that came along with some of the contentions in the urban communities, and teen pregnancy. How about that? You know what I mean? So many things that I have definitely overcome by the grace of God, and thank God. It's just like, I'm kind of like one of the truly one of the blessed ones, the lucky ones, as they say, but of course, translation blessed. Everybody doesn't have the spiritual support to navigate these waters, and then it's just like, I mean, it's like, damn, it really is a survival of the fittest, but just like I said, some things just ain't fair. You know, some things are just not fair. So, I don't know. Let's see what else. I don't know what that has to do with what we're talking about, but that's just where I'm at today, all right? So bear with me. All right, we got the Two of Swords. Let me get one more. Okay. Crossing over. There's some crossroads of sorts, or a point of decision making about moving forward in some independent way. Let's see. Queen of Pentacles. Excuse me. We got rest and rejuvenation. What did we start with? Oh, it was the Five of Pentacles. Oh, okay. So this is kind of like outlining what I'm saying, that have come from dire straits, you know, to some degree, to have survived a great deal, to even be chosen in such a way to have a vision of anything beyond what you could, you know, to conceive of anything beyond what you could conceptualize, like what you could actually see, you know what I mean? Or to perceive of something that, you know what I'm trying to say, you know, to basically be able to see beyond to believe for beyond what you could actually see evidence for. So here's that with the Queen of Pentacles, and then the Ten of Cups is like ultimate wish fulfillment, happy life, you know, nothing left to be desired, goals met, legacy of love achieved and solidified, sustained even. Then how do we get here? Because here's this crossroads moment, literally with the Two of Swords, and then move into more peaceful and calmer waters. Yeah. I guess, you know what it feels like? It's just, you know, it's strange to say, especially on the soapbox that I was just on, but it's like accepting. Yeah, I just heard, what is it called? Survivor's remorse. That's the bout that I just went through in my soliloquy just now, you know, and it felt like that too. It felt kind of dense and, you know, a bit heavy for me to even express myself just now. And it's like having to accept the terms of your triumph, you know, that yes, perhaps maybe some people, it as the saying goes, favor ain't fair, as we say in Christianity popularly, but that sometimes it does feel like a why me, you know, like why do I get to be so blessed? Why do I get to be so lucky? And you almost feel helpless to really help those that haven't had a fair shot really to help themselves, you know. And I feel like this energy holistically it's like almost having to relent to the disparity in the world as it is, but still with the hope that it can be something different. But it may be a moment of transition of individuality or a solo mission of sorts to success before, well, it absolutely would have to be, right, before it could ever truly be anything of value on a more collective scale, you know. In other words, like if you're anything like me, you have a heart to want to help and heal as many people as you possibly can. And perhaps the point of surrender truly, maybe submission, but it feels more like a surrendering, like almost I just kind of like got to give up the notion to some degree that that's possible. It's like you have to just accept, as I said, in all those ways that I have overcome trials and tribulations just on account of the space and time that I was born into and the place, that I was born into. You have to accept that you were blessed for a reason, and that it's nothing to be remorseful or apologetic for, even amongst those more intimately that you may feel a disconnection from or a disparity between. This is kind of what that energy here is, almost like leaving people behind, with the two of swords here is somebody that just don't know, they're at a crossroads, and they're in this regard, as what I'm speaking of a little bit, is speaking to someone that may not necessarily have the tools to move forward in the way that they may even desire to, or the opportunity or the resources, like all the things that I said. And here is the Nine of Pentacles on the other side of that, who has somehow found her way, or it has found all of those things have found their way to her. Nothing to be desired by way of security and stability and independence, material affluence and spiritual affluence with the Nine of Pentacles. It's just kind of like, and maybe perhaps it's there. These are transitional moments that are occurring in real time right now, because me seeing that today and being pissed off by it, not really pissed off, but just like puzzled, like why do we need a smoke shop right here? First of all, there's a liquor store just up the block that sells smoking materials. There's literally a smoke shop maybe 4 blocks up the way. It's just like, why do we need one right here? Why do we need it to be that accessible for people to, entangle themselves in habits and addictions that much easier? It's just like I said, it's unfair, but can we get a freaking fruit stand, or like something? Corner stores, love them. Grew up on them. Bodegas, being in New York, love them. You know what I mean? It's like the heart of the neighborhood, especially if you don't have the resources or transportation to get to more of your big box supermarket chains of such. Because best you're going to do in the hood is to save a lot, for real, at least in mine, in this local area. You got to go take a bus and a plane and a train. Not really. I mean, I have my groceries delivered, but you don't even have an accessible bus route to get straight to the supermarket anymore. Whereas once upon a time you did, but they changed the route so that you can't even go directly onto that. It's just a lot, but you can walk up the street and get you some wraps, or get you some tobacco, or get you a pipe, or get you, what I mean? It's like cigarettes or whatever the hell else that's ultimately just going to bring you down, and like I said, I ain't got nothing against it, especially in its purest form, but it's the corruption around it that really bothers me. It really, really, really does, So I don't know. All this to say is that this is a crossover moment, and I guess it's like it's a point of contention, especially for those. And I may not, I may be speaking this way because perhaps you can relate. I sure hope so, and to some degree, that there's something that bothers you about life. Maybe you're not from the hood, but just how life goes. and you have the vision for it. There's also another scripture, I think it's in Nehemiah, where ultimately it speaks to, like, if whoever cries for it, or has whoever is bothered by it, more or less is empowered to be the agent of change, more or less. I'd have to find the scripture to really speak to it, but that's the gist of it. Like, if it bothers you, then it's something that you have the passion to change, you know? So I know that's a thing for me in some way, shape, or form. I don't know completely how that gets to be, especially for the vision that I have to make an impact and influence, and the time that I foresee to do so, you know, in my narrow-sightedness. But still, nonetheless, in the present moment, you almost feel like pulled in two different directions to pursue your destiny in a very self-centered or self-focused way, like, you know, the mom and the baby on the airplane type of syndrome, that you gotta take care of you before you can take care of baby type of thing. But it doesn't leave any less frustration in the process, you know, in that transfer. So I don't know. I guess I'm calling or inciting for there to be a release, maybe perhaps, of the guilt, and maybe even the frustration itself, like really surrendering. That's probably why it's a surrender, not so much of a submission in this case, to really surrender yourself to the process, whatever that gets to be, and know that whatever your supreme intentions are will be aligned with spirit to be carried out in a holistic way that is good for all, or overall. Because of course the reality is you can't help everybody, and everybody doesn't want to be helped, and everybody isn't, you know, it's just not possible for what you do per se, you know, to be the source for all. That's why many of us are here, to work in different capacities. So you shouldn't even feel like you have to take it all on, you know, carry the world on your shoulders anyway, you know. So and that probably puts more of a burden on your purpose, in the process of, you know, performing in that righteous right, then is necessary, and certainly then is actually productive, back to that Five of Pentacles energy. So maybe perhaps the spirit of poverty can rear its ugly head in ways that are not so practical as, oh, I don't have enough money, or I'm not enough, or I don't feel like I'm worthy, or, you know, things like that. But it could even be in the way that I'm speaking of now, and something for me to purge and to cleanse, and this pressure to want to do more than what is truly required, at least in this present moment, to want to help more than you actually are obligated to help your own self, at least in this present moment. You know, that in itself can be poverty inflicting, because it can put you in the position to feel like, well, if you can't do it all, what good are you to do anything? You know, like what good is any of it if I can't do all of it, type of thing. So this is weird. I don't know why I'm so emotional. Oh man. Yeah, this is the conflict here. I don't even know what this is about, but I'm gonna put that to the side over here, because it feels like conflicting energy with this Moon card. Yeah, it feels like a sideline energy from what I'm saying, with the Five of Wands, which is competition, conflict, the Emperor, and the Moon. It could be speaking to what I'm saying now, like an uprising. That's what I just heard. Like an uprising against the Emperor. something that's happening behind the scenes or under the surface, or that just can't be seen just now. You know, like perhaps the whole reason why it's like trust the process. It's like it'll be balanced out, or there'll be some, I hear revolution. But definitely when I heard uprising, that makes sense. What is that called? Like a mutiny? A mutiny when there's like, when the people are kind of organizing against higher powers. Is that what that is? I don't know exactly what that word means. I'll have to look it up later. Revolution, of course, I know a revolt or a, insurgents. And with the emperor, it could be against a higher powered figure or organization, but it feels more like the empire, you know, particularly the conflict within the empire that I was just speaking of, where it's just like the mysticism behind it all with this moon card. Sometimes that the moon can definitely give a low vibrational inflection, you know. It's not the sun, that's for sure, and definitely not in the context that I'm speaking of. Let's see what else we got here. Did I get another 3? I did. Okay, perfect. That'll go right over here. Then I'll finish out down below. All right. So this is the 8 of Wands. I'm sorry, 9 of Wands. The 8 of Cups. And then the High Priestess. And then that's the Wounded Warrior, who's looking a little like, yeah, that's what it is. It's like the PTSD of society, of being an inhabitant of this society is taking its toll, you know, and people are either being completely overpowered by it, absorbed. I'm trying to find the word, but consumed. There it is, consumed by it, or they're actually in the position to walk away and maybe even create something on the fringe or adjacent to that has a greater value, perhaps a more spiritual essence. Maybe that's the response of the people, which is kind of like, I mean, that definitely makes sense to some degree, but it's what I'm puzzled on as to why this is coming up as it is right now. Like, I feel like I could have a more practical connection to this, because it feels a bit, maybe that's the whole mysticism of the moon here, like something feels aloof, or I feel like I'm talking in like riddles or something, or even to myself, you know what I mean? It's like, what are we really saying here, or are we not supposed to say with the High Priestess? And the heavy emotion that I feel is definitely implicated here with the Moon card and even the 9 of Wands. But the High Priestess is anchoring this ambition to move forward with the 8 of Cups, like having the faith to know that to say, especially if we're talking about by way of society, like no, I don't accept this as my reality anymore. Whereas conventionally, we have been conditioned to do so, like, well, this is just how life is, type of thing. What can you do about it? It's like, oh no, there's a lot we can do about it. Like, and even if, and perhaps that's the energy of which I'm speaking of, where the crossroads, that's what it is. It's this moment of like, is there anything to even be done? And if so, do I have what it takes to make an impact? Do I have the resources? Like, do I have the power? Do I have the influence? Do I have the stamina? The protection even that it would take to sustain a revolution, even in my own right, against a system that has been well established, forever, as far as we're concerned. You know what I mean? It's something here. I know I didn't have my soapbox emotional moment about the weed and the ads and incarceration and all that, and even the desecration of urban neighborhoods for nothing. And even the contention in real time as to what I get to release and resolve as my right, to revolt, or not. You know what I mean? I feel like that is the question at hand right now that many people are finding themselves. I feel like people may be pushed or are being pushed. This is a crossroads moment to that point of declaration, one way or another, in spirit and in truth, perhaps. Tired of being in that Five of Pentacles energy where nothing is ever enough. Even when you do have enough, it still doesn't feel like enough. You don't feel like you can do enough. People literally don't have enough, quite physically, but hella smoke shops, hella liquor stores, hella McDonald's, you know what I mean? So on and so forth. It's like, when is enough enough? When is enough enough? I think there will be a revolution very soon in some way, shape, or form that is going to speak to that. Like, people are tired. That's the energy that I'm getting. And as I said, some people, I feel like those that have the foresight to see a productive process of all this definitely have the greatest charge to proclaim it and speak it into existence. Literally, this is with this energy here. Like, you're almost in the center of this battleground to some degree, like the center of the war field, to pray, proclaim, declare the reality of this vision here, because it's going to take that proclamation to bridge the gap, literally to bridge the gap between the anxiety and fed upness, honestly, that people feel, and what it really would take to transmute that energy to make something productive of it. Because otherwise people, as in here, and even here with the Nine of Wands, can be very emotional and have a lot of energy and even anger or frustration for a thing, but don't really know how to organize that energy in a way, like to conduct it in a way that would actually incite change and not more destruction or more confusion, make matters worse than better. And perhaps sometimes it causes for that back and forth to truly create the balance indeed. But I still feel like, you know, me saying what I'm saying, I know I'm not saying it to deaf ears. I know that there are some people that feel their own levels of frustration, and you may feel like your hands are full or even tied. But here is where the responsibility, I won't even say responsibility, but the great charge and maybe even honor lies for us to be able to carry this mission over in spirit to some prosperous and productive outcome and reality where others may falter. You know, like you may not be able to help everybody or even reach everybody by what you say, but just the energy, it's like that's what the contention is, to know that you're not your intentions are not menial. Like you just being in the mindful space to believe for a favorable outcome overall for all, regardless of your resources, to make it be so in a natural or physical form, has more power than an impact than you could ever imagine, is what I think what I'm ultimately trying to get to. And it may be the bridge, literally, with this 10 of Cups, it's almost like a bridge to help us cross over safely into this evolutionary space where things are being balanced out, but they feel like they're, you know, spinning out of control first before they actually seem to be crossing over into this promised land energy, so to speak, where there is independence and stability and security and sanctity of mind, body, and spirit. You know, wholeness is the ideal. I don't know if I'm saying what I need to say, but I'm saying it, so I hope you can feel me, because there's something about holding the vision and also just being clear, like I said before, not to put too much pressure on yourself, like that anybody needs you to do it all, or that what you're doing is not enough in itself. Because it is, even if you're just taking care of you and your family, or you, how about that? That adds value to the collective creative consciousness in ways that are immeasurable, quite honestly. It raises the frequency and almost holds space for this. It's almost like, oh man, I just got chills too. You know what it feels like? It's the scripture, and I talked about this the other day, the difference between Moses' time when they crossed over the Red Sea. I didn't talk about the sea part, but I talked about the difference between Moses and his leadership in the crossover and Joshua and his leadership. And the difference is, well, the most significant standout is that with Joshua, it wasn't so much of a parting. Another point that was made clear to me by the great Pastor Mike Walrun, First Corinthian Baptist Church, it wasn't just the parting of the Red Sea where, you know, at least, you know, by stories perspective, you know, that the waters spread apart and they were able to walk over on dry land. It was with Joshua, it was that the flow of the Jordan was stopped up. It was like halted. I want to say states, but it's not that. Of course, they weren't like states, but like, let's just say states before the point of the flow would have affected their crossover. It was like it was already stopped well beyond the point. It was held up in a place where they couldn't even see. You know what I mean? Like, if that makes sense. It's like the difference between if you're on the shore let's say, of the East Coast, and it stopped up in Maryland, you're not going to be able to see that all the way in New Jersey. You know, you just will be like, well, ain't no water, what's going on, type of thing. But you're going to walk across if that's what you're supposed to do, right? But that's the disparity of distance between where the waters ceased and where they were supposed to flow naturally. And I just felt something on that. It's like, and then what happens while all of that's occurring, and I can't remember now if that was in Moses' time or Joshua 2, where the priests were like stationed throughout the passageway. I would say the water, but there was no water on the dry land until the people passed through. Imagine that. And the priests were far fewer than the lot of Israelites, you know, the nation itself that was passing through to this other side of the to the promised land. Ultimately, that's the energy that I'm feeling on this. Not to get all super religious on you, especially if you don't connect to Christian views, but it's like something about those that have a mind to like hold back the floodgates, you know, and flood, and this, and perhaps even in the scriptures to some degree, is really the expression of emotional overwhelm, you know, maybe even outcry, frustration, anxiety, like all of these things that people are being, that's kind of like an uprising within the people internally, you know, or people are just about ready to just burst on account of just feeling overwhelmed with emotions just for the purposes of just wanting to survive day to day or feel safe and secure in their own space, you know? So that's probably what I'm getting at in terms of like the few that have the foresight, let alone the gift to transmute energy, are those that have the honor and the I hate to say responsibility because it's not that, but it's just like the facility, there it is, to hold those floodwaters for the masses, you know, because once the priests walked out of the banks of the Jordan, the water began to flow again. So it's like something about the priests signaled the rites of passage in some way, shape, or form. And for whatever reason, you know, they were the signifiers that it was safe to travel on, or they held, you know, as long as they were in the banks, the waters were kept from overtaking the people. Wow, this is interesting. And I believe it's done more, but this is the thing, like each priest stood alone, you know, like each priest stood on his or her, well, probably more his back then, his own post, you know, but none less, any less or more significant than the last, you know, or the other. So that's the point of connection here, was like what you're doing, your place, whatever you're doing, whatever territory you're covering, whatever vision you are materializing, whatever intentions you are motivated by, are just as important in holding back this floodgate of what could ultimately consume creation energetically than if you were to have the strength of 1,000 men on your side. You know, just you doing what you do in integrity, in truth, not underestimating the power of happiness and wholeness and fulfilling your heart's desire. Because that's the thing, it's like you can't, if you forfeit that, you may let a flood, you may be washed away by the flood as well. And then there will be no hope for those that don't know. Oh my God, this is so good. That don't know that they're privy to that audacity of ascension themselves. You know what I mean? It's like the Israelites that were just passed through. The priests were held to a different standard of devotion to some degree, but honorably so. There was a different, it's so much here. I'm gonna get up out of this, but I hope that you understand what I'm saying, that you are like a priest. High priestess here. You are like a priest or priestess that is helping creation make its safe passage from the old world, the old establishment, of which is very dark and gray to some degree, over into this more vibrant expression and experience of life that is in fact foreign territory, because it's nothing like we've been conditioned to accept, let alone to actually create and contribute to up until this time. For some, it doesn't even make sense that it would even exist, you know, but yet it does. And yet it only truly does because it's a matter of maintenance in the reality of those chosen few, by the faith of those chosen few that have the audacity to believe for it. So there lies like the full circle moment of feeling like, why me? Oh, because it makes all the difference. It's not even a matter of, oh, well, why do I get to have dreams and escape the hood and survive destitution and tribulation? Why do I get to be so lucky and so blessed? And it's because, oh, hold up, wait a minute. It's because creation depends on it. That's why. It's not just for you. You doing what you do is for you. But if you weren't enlightened to know that there was a such thing as doing you, then what hope would there be for anybody? You know, so, and that's the case for all of the ones, the so-called chosen, to continue to really embody that truth and stand on it, you know, covet it really as a treasure, not to exalt self, you know, over anyone else that may not be privy to that truth. But as I said, almost like standing in the gap, being a plank on the bridge for those that also get to go if they choose to. You know, it's like, wow, that's amazing. Let me just get a few more. Yeah, look at this. This is it right here. Victory and success, moving ahead, having overcome some great trials and tribulations. Really get into it. It's the aftermath of this chaos and confusion right here with the Five of Wands. That's the next card. Being able to move beyond the confusion, the chaos, the calamity, the clash of culture, to stand above the fray or live beyond the fray. Oh, wow, that was almost the Queen of Wands. Oh, shoot. Y'all saw that, didn't you? I think you did, by the way I was shuffling. I'm taking it. I got to. Because that's just that on that at this point. Look at this progression. And it stems from knowing your value, knowing your worth, knowing that you were chosen for a purpose, you know, and it's unique to everyone, and being respectful of everyone's identity to some degree, and being only devoted to yours in the most supreme sense. That's the high priestess energy here. Not being victim to the system. Knowing what to be in alignment with, and when, you know, it's time to walk away and find something else more suitable. And that could be a physical walking away, or just a disconnection from values that are not in alignment with your most supreme self. That takes a great deal of courage and resilience to stand on that foundation. And now here it is. This is like evolution, legacy. You know, this is a progression here, going from this crossroads to literally moving ahead to the 9 of Pentacles, which is sheer independence, to victory and success. Remember, when Joshua and them go over to the promised land, they find a battle. It's like, this is like the story being told right here. And so here's the victory and success over what? The competition, the chaos, the battle, the fight. The Queen of Wands, who's the most fierce of all the queens, and if we're talking about war, this is the one you want to see on the battlefield for sure. You know, the one that's bold and fearless and courageous and confident in everything, that every territory she sets her sights upon. And then what does that move into but the Empress, the most supreme, feminine, well, I'll say the most powerful, because I feel like the High Priestess is supreme, but the most powerful feminine force in the deck. Here's a Knight of Pentacles, some offer. Yeah, it's like, it's been a long time coming, but now it's here. It feels like it's been a long time coming, but it's well within reach now. If you can't get into like, it's here, then just know it's well within your reach now. This is the return of the investment in yourself, which ultimately does afford for the sustenance and stability of a legacy. This is the impact and the influence that gets to happen beyond you on account of you taking care of you. This is how it gets to trickle down, expand, magnify itself. Like I said, this may even be you, like Joan of Arc. You know, like this, like Joan of Arc vibes, if you know, because it's been so much feminine energy. But with the Knight of Pentacles, where you've been at war for a long time, battling for a long time, maybe even with yourself or in your surroundings, in your family, amongst your folks, just fighting to matter. How about that? To matter, maybe even to your own self, like, what am I even doing here, type of thing. And you effed around and you found out, thankfully, because it wasn't just for you. You have literally, or are quite literally, saving a legacy. For some, you may be starting a legacy. But even still, it would still be a survival of sorts and a continuation of a bloodline that would have otherwise have been cut off. Consider those Bible stories that I'm talking about where everybody didn't make it. If it wasn't for Joshua standing up for what he knew to be true, and Caleb in the very beginning when there was contention about whether or not the promised land, the promise that God had made was really true. Because that was really the question, like, should we go over there? I don't know. God said, but it ain't looking good to me. We're going to get crushed, If it wasn't for the faithful few that said, no, I believe that if God said it, it is so. It's ours for the taking. That is our land. That is our gift. That is our destiny. Perhaps nobody would have made it. And yeah, it took a long time. It took 40 years, 40 more years, and maybe it would have otherwise. But still, I say, like I said in my message yesterday, now is the time, particularly within this new moon in Capricorn, to be thankful for the things that have happened and the things that have not. Because there are some things that we would have wished to have come into fruition a long time ago, that if they had, they probably wouldn't even be a matter of reality now, because we would have either squandered it, destroyed it, lost it, not taking it, seriously, or taking it for granted. Even ourselves, if we had become who we had the vision to become, the business owners, the proprietors, the mothers, the wives, the husbands, the owners, the bosses, if we had become the identities of which we envision for ourselves, or were given, imparted the vision to perceive of ourselves, we may have never actually conceived it, because we may have, in the timing that we thought it should have been, we may perhaps not have been actually ready to step into the position that we were being called for. We may not have been as prepared for that position in that time as we actually may be now. And so is the case on and on and on, until as long as you have breath in your body, that we're always being prepared for more. And the hardest part in this human experience and existence is to be present throughout the process and to enjoy it. That's the hardest part. But certainly in hindsight, you can always truly see, like, oh, I wasn't ready for that then. This is why I had to wait. This is why it took so long. This is why it was delayed. And then we celebrate that moment in the moment, but perhaps this is a transition now where we get to really embody that truth, so that ultimately does keep us in a space of rest and rejuvenation, where we're always in submission to the divine and whatever that timing of co-creativity gets to be between spirit and truth. That's a beautiful, harmonious space to live in, where you always have enough, even as you are looking forward to what's more. Not eager, not anxious, but just always open for it, and allowing the flow to be as it's destined and designed to be so. That truly is an embodiment of power. Like, imagine an empress ruling her throne in that regard. An empress supporting her emperor in that fertility. That's a fruitful empire of sorts, because the energy from the head is only going to continue to trickle down. So that's why it's so important for us to continue to hold our vision high. As I said, raising that creative consciousness, to continue to raise the roof on the confinements that we've all been conditioned by, continuously raising the roof so that it gives space for others to elevate, to ascend. And before we know it, we all in that prosperous state together in our own right. As many of us that are willing to be so. There's always that, but certainly much more potential for it as we, the priests and priestess, hold the capacity for that creativity. That's amazing. I don't even know. Wow. I know it's on account, like yesterday I did the new moon message, which was heavy on the fact that today is January 11th, 111, which is a triple influence or inflection of new beginnings, right? Think about the Trinity and all of that good stuff. So that's probably what's pulsating through this message in a more profound way than I can even really put words to. But I hope that you take away I hope that you can connect to the honor of the charge of your creativity now. I really hope that you do, and that you truly are separating yourself from any spirit of lack within self or otherwise, no matter what resources are at hand or not. Because just you being you, standing in that gap, standing in the bank of this Jordan of our creative transition is making all the difference right now. It truly, truly is. Like, we couldn't do it without you. That's so saith the divine. In whatever capacity you give reverence, it is so. It couldn't be so without your presence right here, right now, at such a time as this, doing what you love, what you find valuable, and doing it with the highest expression of integrity and passion. That is so important. So please, as you don't take any of that for granted, please don't take yourself for granted. Just know how special you are in spirit and in truth. I can't even say that more intensely, like, than I feel it, but it sounds so cliche, like, oh, you're so special. But I'm telling you, like, you are making the difference in whether or not this world like makes this evolution or just completely combusts from the inside out, more so the inhabitants thereof than the actual earth itself. Because I feel like if we all blew each other to smithereens, the earth itself would still stand. But wouldn't that be a pity? You know what I mean? Especially when there's a great promise for us to see life in another dimension of the divine to some degree. If you understand what he that have an ear, let him hear. Like, you understand what I'm saying. We have that invitation and that opportunity on our hands now. So those that can stand in the gap and stand firmly footed, focused on what their personal assignment is. That's it, that's all. Don't take no more of the world on your shoulders than that. Please continue to do so. The world needs you to continue to do so. All right, so that's all I have to say. And I thank you for listening and watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.